When I go to heaven, I want to play a rendition of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I want to play all the parts. I remember when I first heard about that movie, somebody was singing a little bit of Sweet Transvestite. I thought, oh, it's kind of clever, it's okay. I was in downtown Wichita Falls. This is the late 1970s. Apparently this was a re-showing, and it was showing at one of the old theaters. I used to go downtown to watch movies in the theater back in the 60s and the 50s. This is before the days of the malls, and now the malls are going away. And I thought, it looks okay. But I remember going to a midnight showing at Sykes Center Mall in Wichita Falls, Texas, and it absolutely shocked me. I'd never seen such a mess in a theater, but I never had been in anything with this kind of audience participation. There was so much joy. I remember over at the Frankenstein place, they're in the rain and everybody breaks out the newspapers and they're looking at the light. There's a light over at the Frankenstein place. I'm like, I'm home. I'm finally home. I remember being absolutely shocked by the time warp. And then he breaks into the room and there are all these people there in this bright light dancing. And the camera pans over and there's Columbia all in glitter on a piano. Well, I was walking down the street just having to think. And I was, who does that? And then, of course, Sweet Transvestite. Here's this gorgeous gay man saying things that I would never dream of saying, if only, not necessarily because of fear, because I'm not clever enough to do what he said. Now, this is based upon Frankenstein. He's Frank-N-Furter. It's based upon Frankenstein. And I've come across, I read Frankenstein, I'm going to read it again. And I've come across a book by a man named John Laritsen, the man who wrote Frankenstein. Because we're told Mary Shelley did it, but he shows, to my satisfaction, that her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, actually wrote it. Among other things, there's actually stuff that he wrote before Frankenstein that's clearly leading into Frankenstein. And he wrote a lot of stuff after. But Mary never wrote anything of importance. This is his. It's basically a metaphor for the trauma of being a homosexual in that day and age. I've part of the Log Cabin Republicans here in Texas, and I've always wanted to make a play based on Frankenstein, but to completely rewrite it, to be much more faithful and true to the story. Highlighting that part, there's a guy in the Log Cabin Republicans of Dallas who would actually make a perfect creature. He would make the perfect creature. I mean, he's not built like a brick shithouse, but he's, as we say here in Texas. But there's just something wily about him. We all think that Frankenstein's monster was a lumbering monster, that the creature, but he was actually a swift phantom. He was faster than the wind. He could snap your neck like a twig. And he would do that. He could kill you like that. And he was vastly more intelligent than we were. He was absolutely brilliant. So Rocky Horror Picture Show got that part right. But it sort of debased it. Frankly, basically wanted a sex machine, whereas Victor was trying to build a lover, a male lover. Now, obviously, that included sexual relations. A couple of other versions that I can think of is the famous 1957 Hammer Films production, Frankenstein, starring Peter Cushing. Those Hammer movies used to scare the shit out of me, scare the hell out of me. And in that, basically like the creature, the creature is the manifestation of being an abomination as a homosexual in the world of his day. The creature was a reflection of the dark abomination that was actually Victor's heart. So they got that right, but he was still the lumbering monster. There's also Penny Dreadful, a Showtime TV series from 2014. The creature is exactly what you see in the book. He's swift, he's powerful, he's brilliant. And Victor, hope I don't spoil it, but he refuses to build a bride for him because he says they're just going to be monsters. She's going to be as bad as him, and they're going to create a race of super monsters and they're going to destroy the world. Well, he creates his bride in the series, and she is, in fact, as horrible as Victor feared. But they used all this to push this social justice warrior bullshit. This stuff is real old. I get so tired of it. Everything, they're spitting in your face and calling you a son of a bitch if you're a white man, and everybody else is so perfect, and everything would just be so wonderful if it just weren't for those evil white people. Also, another thing they got right, just like in the book, they didn't push it, but they strongly imply that Victor was a homosexual because he creates a second monster. And he seems to have done this one right, but unfortunately. Back in this time, people were expected to marry, even gay men, obviously. We clearly made arrangements to be with each other, although most of us were too terrified to do anything outside of marriage. Are we breaking our vows? Well, if you marry under duress, that marriage is ripe for annulment. So it's not as if it never happened. So it's not really, in this case, I would argue, now I don't know about canon law, but it seems to me it's not really, what is it called when you cheat on your wife? It's not really cheating. Adultery. There is one other character, though, another man. We have Victor and his probable lover, Henry Clerval, but there's another man who never makes any plans on getting married. He never even pretends that he will. He doesn't mention any women. He's writing letters to his sister. On the contrary, he's explicitly looking for a male friend. And his interaction with the creature is a critical clue that indeed Frankenstein was written by a gay man, married to a woman, and he dreamed up the creature as an incarnation of the psychological torture gay men have to endure. Well, for one thing, you have to deceive and betray your own wife, who might very well be a dear friend, and your children. There's a story in there where the monster interacts with the de Lacy family. Well, secretly, they don't know he's watching them. And listening to them, he learns how to speak. Well, actually, he learns French, because they speak French. And he learns how to read. This goes to show you how brilliant he is. And he does many little kindnesses for them. And he's just enraptured by them, and he desperately wants to be a part of this. But he introduces himself to the family patriarch, who's blind. And then right as he's talking to him, of course, he doesn't see, he's a monster. And while he's in the middle of the conversation, his family shows up, and they're horrified, and they run him off. That's what it's like to be gay in this kind of culture. It was literally okay to murder you if you were a homosexual. It's literally okay. And I can see, and you want to be part of it. I want to be part of a regular Christian church. But all the Christians I talk to at work, I can't even call them brother. I can't really participate with them and their families. I'd like to go to a gay church, but those people aren't even Christians, as far as I'm concerned. I wish it weren't true, but I'm afraid it is. I can see, therefore, why this creature is bitter and murderous. C.G. Jung talked about the only man who ever met who took Friedrich Nietzsche, seriously in his morals. Because a lot of young men do, but then they grow out of it. But this guy never did. Because Nietzsche was disturbed, whether you like him or not. This guy was a homosexual. And I did a video on my main channel for Dr. Taylor Marshall. He talks a lot about homosexual clergy and how anti-Catholic they are, how dangerous they are, how they're destroying the Catholic Church. And you're looking at Frankenstein's creature. That's what you're looking at. I don't give into this bitterness. I actively subvert any bitterness and hatred in my heart to anybody. If I hate somebody on a particular day, I will pray 10 Hail Marys on their behalf. If I really hate them, I will pray a whole rosary. If I'm worried they're going to go to hell, then I'll pray a full rosary for them, for their possible redemption, so that the Holy Spirit speaks to them. And when I read this, and you think of this as a cri de coeur, the cry of the heart of a gay man, the abomination that you are seen as, when all you want to do is participate in the world and be loved and give love to the world. It's just stunning, the language. I'm going to read from it. This language is gorgeous. And it's depressing looking at this and comparing it to what we have now, which is just like RuPaul, stuff like that, which is fun, but it's not high culture. Brokeback Mountain is good, God's Country. We have done it before. We've done good culture before, and as I just showed you, we've done it recently. We can do it again. Now, I'm going to start reading a little bit from this. I'm going to read a letter that, who is this? Captain Robert Walton, this is the guy who never pretends he's ever going to get married to a woman. He's writing to his sister, Mrs. Margaret Saville, who no doubt strongly disapproves. As I said, the language is beautiful. I think you will agree. But I have one want, which I have never yet been able to satisfy, in the absence of the object of which I now feel as a most severe evil. I have no friend, Margaret. When I am glowing with the enthusiasm of success, there will be none to participate my joy. If I am assailed by disappointment, no one will endeavor to sustain me in dejection. I shall commit my thoughts to paper, it is true, but that is a poor medium for the communication of feeling. I desire the company of a man who would sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. You may deem me romantic, my dear sister, but I bitterly feel the want of a friend. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as of a capacious mind, whose tastes are like my own, to approve or amend my plans. How would such a friend repair the faults of your poor brother? I am too ardent in execution and too impatient in difficulties, but it is still greater evil for me that I am self-educated. Beautiful. What he's looking for is a helpmate. He's looking for an Eve, except he's looking for a man. Now let's look at his interaction with the actual creature. These are the two paragraphs. This is a page. By the way, this is the Norton Critical Edition of Frankenstein's Mary Shelley, the second edition. Here is Robert talking to the monster. I was at first touched by the expressions of his misery. Yet when I called to mind what Frankenstein had said of his powers of eloquence and persuasion, and when I again cast my eyes on the lifeless form of my friend, indignation was rekindled within me. Wretch, I said, it is well that you come here to whine over the desolation that you have made. You throw a torch into a pile of buildings, and when they are consumed you sit among the ruins and lament the fall. Hypocritical fiend! If he whom you mourn still lived, still would he be the highest? Would he be the object? Again would he become the prey of your accursed vengeance? It is not pity that you feel. You lament only because the victim of your malignity is withdrawn from your power. If I ever do this play, I'm going to try very hard to preserve this language. Oh, it is not thus, interrupted the being. Yet such must be the impression conveyed to you by what appears to be the purport of my actions. Yet I seek not a fellow being in my misery. No sympathy may I ever find. When I first sought it, it was the love of virtue, the feelings of happiness and affection, with which my whole being overflowed, that I wished to be participated. That's what it's like. You know, this is what I call whiplash. When you're so full of love and you want to jump in and then everybody treats you like you're just shit. You're such an abomination that's okay to kill you. Think about what that does to people. But now that virtue has become to me a shadow, and that happiness and affection are turned into bitter and loathing despair. And what should I seek for sympathy? I am content to suffer alone. While my sufferance shall endure, when I die, I am well satisfied that abhorrence and opprobrium should load my memory. Once my fancy was soothed with dreams of virtue, of fame, and of enjoyment. Once I falsely hoped to meet with beings who, pardoning my outward form, would love me for the excellent qualities which I was capable of bringing forth. I was nourished with high thoughts of honor and devotion, but now vice has degraded me beneath the meanest animal. No crime, no mischief, no malignity, no misery can be found comparable to mine. When I call over the frightful catalogue of my deeds, I cannot believe that I am he whose thoughts were once filled with sublime and transcendent visions of the beauty and the majesty of goodness. But it is even so. The fallen angel becomes a malignant devil. Yet even that enemy of God and man had friends and associates in his desolation. I am quite alone. It's funny that he should say that. A fallen angel. Robert is able to interfere with him in such a fearless manner because he is a full and authentic human. There are a lot of people who get censored for trash-talking gay people on the internet. If you are such a person, rest assured, it's not coming from me. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of what you have to say about me. I'm not afraid of what you say about the Bible. I know God has me covered. Robert could have saved Victor if only Victor had opened his heart to him. And had he done that, that devil would once again have been transformed into an angel, a guardian angel, who warmed the lives of them both. Now, I am mixed about Rocky Horror Picture Show. Frank-N-Furter is narcissistic. But then again, it's hard dealing with weak people who don't understand you, who kind of blow you off. And then when you succeed, like Janet, they're happy to swoop in and steal the fruits of their labor. There's hypocrisy that needs to be dealt with, but that can be overstated. I see this as subversive of the moral order, which has gone too far. I think it was healthy back in the 70s, but it's gone too far. There's a vengeance wreaked upon Brad and Janet that they deserved, but now it's gone too far. The song Superhero still makes me sad every time I think about it. After it's over, we have a saying, and crawling on the planet's face, some insects called the human race, lost in time and lost in space and meaning. Because the big flaw of this movie, as much as I love it, is it doesn't have Jesus. And without Jesus, that's all you have, no matter how much they say. But I have a sequel. It would actually involve Jesus. I haven't quite figured out how. But in my sequel, the planet Transsexual, the galaxy of Transylvania, is coming to invade the Earth, and their commander is Frank-N-Furter's nephew, Frank-N-Furter, and he is exactly opposite from Frank-N-Furter. And in my sequel, which is still a musical, by the way, Brad and Janet are still married. They're this groovy couple, and they have like 8 or 9 kids, so they were very fruitful and they multiplied. And they go to maybe like a Methodist church or something like that. Because it would like it starts out a wedding in a church. It starts out in a Methodist church, something like that, a very accepting church, but still very much a church. And what happens is Frank-N-Furter meets them and falls in love with their beautiful but groovy daughter. And they transform him, and he sees what his uncle, who he thought was evil, has done to these people, because Brad and Janet at the end of the movie are transformed, and this is what they become. And he saw that he was good and healthy. And he falls in love with their daughter, and they get married in that Methodist church. Isn't that fantastic? And then the showstopper, just like the sweet transvestite, except at the very end. And of course, he's not a transvestite, and that's okay. And he's not gay, and that's okay. And they all pull out, and it's a big family song. In the end, we have the ending that I wish that we could have had in the original movie. But just goes to show that there's plenty of room for Christianity and for gay people. There's room for high culture, there's room for sublime psychology, and there's room for a hell of a lot of fun. A hell of a lot of fun. I love being a Christian. Jesus Christ is fantastic. And I used to say that almost kind of as an obligation, because although I knew in my heart that was true, up here in my head I didn't quite know why that was true, and I'm beginning to see more and more why that's true. And I cannot wait for the whole world to become Christian. And it will. God bless.